something else. If you ever watch a game of TVC with MarineLorD, it is the funniest.
Yeah, a man that could also be called or described as Meme Lord in the Southeast, or perhaps Salt Lord. He is MarineLorD.
And in the bottom left, representing Cosmos Esports, it is SortOf. So we have this map yet again. So yeah, I'm assuming two-base Muta is probably going to be the call once again. Let's see how MarineLorD will contend with it.
Yeah, very sensible prediction, I think. It's strong, man. So this looks like we're getting the. By the way, that's the other result that's popping up on the screen right now. COS 2-1 over Denver. I'm going to say that that's quite a shocker for me, at least personally. I mean, just COS is one of those guys that I've been watching and honestly been inspired by somewhat, because he was one of the first dudes doing a lot of meme stuff in early Wings of Liberty. Him and Bratok, or Mass Raven before it was a thing. All the other types of shenanigans, but. Cool result to see on the other side. We got some Terrans fighting hard here today. And yeah, I agree with you for all the same reasons, like all that full analysis we just did in the laser game. If you want to hear our thoughts, you can check that one out again as well. But there's a lot of good reasons why we should be seeing some Muta play on this map. MarineLorD, though, he does like to mix it up. I do think that he's been taking some creative approaches with some of the things that he's been doing that I liked seeing from last season. And with this very strong start that he's had in this group, I think underestimating him would be a gross mistake for anybody here to make, especially SortOf.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think that SortOf is a straightforward enough player that he's probably planning on playing two-base Muta. This is already a very different wall from MarineLorD, tucking his barracks all the way back with the reactor as well. And SortOf is actually gonna be shy to check it. So this is really cool. This is the type of mind game and like trick that MarineLorD will play. I think what separates him from other players, he's willing to take small risks, right? Like you won't 12 pull me, for example, in favor of doing things like, hey, if you think I made a Marine first, your Overlord can't come inside, right? So then shows the Reaper. And on this map, there's no spotting that Reaper on the way out for the second Overlord until it's too late. Like it's little things like this, right? That gain him tiny advantages. I love it.
Yeah, like I was saying, when I watch MarineLorD play, I like to think about, for me, I think about StarCraft as kind of like a puzzle game of sorts, right? Where people do certain things, or there's a certain meta, but there's always a trick to it, right? There's even behind every great sleight of hand, there is some maneuver, there's something that people are using to piece things together, to put things in place. And MarineLorD plays StarCraft like he kind of sees all of these connected pieces, and he looks for, the little cracks where you haven't quite put it together perfectly, where he can slip something in there and catch you off guard. And that's what I really like to see, is smart play out of these guys. And he is going to be going for that bio follow-up. Stim is on the way. He's getting his medevac, or excuse me, his starport together. It's a 2-1-1, Cats. He says, if you're going mutas, I'm just going to kill you.
Yeah, I love it. I absolutely love it. I'm not sure that he's saying I'm gonna kill you, but I really have been wanting to see 2-1-1 as a response to Muta. I haven't seen enough of it, but it's what used to work, and it's what used to work in the prime of MarineLorD, mind you. He is somewhat of a returning player as of 1 or 2 years back, right? He actually took a leave of absence when he was near his peak. MarineLorD, of course, perhaps most known for all killing Team Korea in Nation Wars.
Yeah, I think he's kind of had those moments in his career, right? And he's a cool guy. He's a funny guy. When you hear his, I think as you were saying, you maybe not the most appropriate conversations that MarineLorD known for getting into.
Difficult to quote.
I think we had some. You know what? I'm just gonna bring it up. He had a really weird text chat, I think, when he played Stefano, was it last season or something? There was some very odd conversations that came up, and I mean, they're officially part of our EPT canon and lore now. So that's just always going to be a part of this league. He's got a sense of humor on him, I'll say the least.
Oh, he sure does. You should see it's whenever it's like a late game and you see Banelings running into PFs, he
Oh,
is
boy.
just besides himself, exploding with, oh, Banelings OPF. Oh, I guess I'll just run into them. And it's like,
I'm
no
really
matter
glad.
what the Banelings do, he's always
Yeah.
being sarcastic, yelling. And even,
MarineLorD's like-
even the Zerg brethren will just have to laugh about it instead of try to argue with him because he's so very funny about it.
Yeah, he's great. MarineLorD is honestly, when we get to the TVZ later today, probably in the LATAM finals, I expect to see MarineLorD in the chat memeing about literally anything that happens if the Zerg player wins. So, but he doesn't really have Banelings, right? That's kind of the risk of this build. Is a lot of your gas is meant to go towards that Spire when it finishes. So the 2-1-1 gives you the ability to really force a lot of larva to be spent on Zerglings. Because if you don't have Banelings, the only way to deal with this is to overwhelm with the units that the Marines are pretty good against.
Yeah, and exactly that's what happens here, but sort of makes so many links that the next thing that my eyes go to is workers, and MarineLorD is already ahead in that department because you have to make so many links while stacking up into Muta, right? Like that's the trouble for this build is it doesn't want to make units until you make the Muta. Otherwise, your economy is just kind of bad. So if you're MarineLorD, I think you say, well, was that unsuccessful? I'm not so sure. I think if you pull back and don't get caught from the Mutas on the retreat, this was a very successful push.
Yeah, I think if he didn't do this 2-1-1, the drone count would already be above 60. So just that he's been able to, even if he can still afford the mutas, the fact that he hasn't been able to like mega saturate that third base is already a small victory because you're taking away the economic snowball that turns into the muta snowball, right?
Yeah, but he has to be careful with these Marines out on the map. This is what I was talking about. The Muta do have catching potential. However, he is far out on the map enough that he has just enough time to run back. So brilliantly done by MarineLorD here, leveraging positioning as much as he can as well, right? It's like he's out there clearing creep, preventing more creep from being parked, and he knows that he still can get back from the mutas. Really well done.
Yeah, he's
And look at
rallying
that,
all of
turret.
his racks into his main base. He does have a turret in the main. He's building one in the natural. Sumlings get on the mineral line, though. He's being annoying. Gets a reactor kill. That's massive pickup there for SortOf. All of the Mutalisks thus far made, still alive. Hasn't lost a single one. Then again, MarineLorD hasn't really lost a whole lot himself. Just 2 Marines in that first Reaper.
Yep, this one Baneling might get 2 SCVs.
Not bad. 6 workers picked off in a flash.
Oh, geez, that was 6?
And the Mutas
One
poked the
Baneling?
gold base at the same time.
Okay.
Yeah. There's a little multi-prong action going on.
All right, still not too bad of a position for either player. I'm sure they're comfortable in their skin right now, but I do love taking the gold as a Terran player here. I do not like the tanks. I've talked about this before.
Well, he doesn't
But,
have anything other than Marines now, and now I'm really scared because Marines are good, but he's got a lot of units coming in. The Laser Bane's going up the ramp. He's got the Mutas to support the gold base. He's gonna get dislodged, cats.
Yeah, and this Banelings still have a lot of work to be done on that mineral line. All of it is gonna fall. The Mutas engaging onto the Marines, not something that you would normally want to do, but sort of seeing that he has enough will push on through. And this is looking a little bit too good for him. MarineLorD had advantages to be seen on many regards, such as the upgrades and whatnot, but ultimately I think those tanks just add nothing, don't do nothing.
No.
And yeah, again, mines I think are much better in this situation, yet still that looked like a very scary force from SortOf.
I have not changed my opinion since the last TVZ that we cast together, cats. So I'm gonna continue to agree with you that I do like Widow Mines a lot. I think especially versus these Mutalist type openers. It's hard because when you're playing Bio, it can turn into that where it's like this big Ling Bane flood with a handful of the Mutas, right? And it's just kind of killing you before you can fully situate that third base. But the tanks are so vulnerable. The Mutas just killed him super fast. No Overseer with the Mutas, of course. And he ends up with nothing to deal with, just the mass Ling Bane.
Yeah, and the best thing that the tanks can ultimately aim at is clumps of Banelings, which is already like more taxing. You have to be paying attention. You have to have the vision, right? Mines are kind of just there, and you can run back to them more easily. You can be a little bit trickier. Your opponent doesn't necessarily know that they're running into them. They shoot Lings, Banelings, and they're Mutas. Yeah,
And they build way faster. They build way faster than tanks too.
Yeah, they're cheaper as well. So you can build. You could have had like 4 mines instead, right? Or
Yeah. I mean, it's just imagining like instead of the 2 tanks that died without doing anything, if you have like 8 mines, right? Just kind of spread out around the front of that base. He had 2-2 on the way, so he had an armory. With no Overseer, the potential for that to have like wiped out everything is really big. Obviously, tanks are nice on that map for specifically if you can siege the south side outside the main, if they don't mine out those minerals. But it's such a, that's a very specific timing to be heading for, or if you want that high ground from the gold base. But even then, I don't feel like that is super easy to justify. However,
very, very difficult.
Yeah,
I think. Yeah, I mean, we have what we have. I still like the 2-1-1 opener for MarineLorD. I think it did what it needed to do. It also gives them the base number of units to be safe behind it, and sort of had no upgrades. Imagine if MarineLorD ever gets to that 2-2, if he can actually secure his lead, that would have been fantastic for him. So I am happy for SortOf in that he manages to take game 1. I would love to see a little bit of an upset, though. I'd say they're kind of evenly matched for the most part. This next map is gonna be Ice and Chrome, though, and MarineLorD is the type of player that will not only just go mech, but sometimes like some funky Earth styles. I think that this map is pretty good for that array of possibilities.
Yeah, at the same hand, going into Ice and Chrome, I do think that MarineLorD's mech play is very strong as well. I don't know if he's still trying to push it as hard, but my mind goes back. The first thing that made me realize that he was actually back was that game he played versus Serral, even though he lost, because I just felt like he took him way further than he ever should have been able to. And for me, that I see that and I'm like, well, if he builds on that, then the potential is limitless, right? But here we are, we're loaded in, we're ready to get going. In the Northeast, the blue Zerg player, we have SortOf. Representing Cosmos Esports, appears to be the clan.
And in the bottom left, representing Cap, it is MarineLorD. The game you're talking about is like a year and a half old now, right? Or something?
No. I'm talking about the one in summer.
recent.
He had
okay.
Yeah. I don't know what it was about that specific one, but I just like the way that he used some of the stuff, like the forward PFs, the positioning that he went for. Like, he had a really, really good setup that I felt had a lot more potential, I guess, than what I've seen from other people who have attempted such things recently. Because it's hard, right? It's hard ironing out what strats are going to give you the ability and the power that you need. But since it's a very good defensive map, and I think this is one of the better maps for TVZ, MarineLorD should be feeling confident no matter what strategy he does on this map.
Yeah, he is one of those players that is often looking towards an end game plan, right? Like building, like you said before, perhaps building all the pieces to a puzzle progressively to where he gets like the best army that he can think of for the right circumstances and such. And maybe that's why I think to a game against Serral as well, like a year and a half ago or so, where I thought, wow, MarineLorD is really doing some cool stuff. He was going like battle cruisers and mass liberators and splitting the map, and I think he took Serral to his limit as well. So
yeah, I do remember the game you're talking about, the crazy one that ended with like
it was
100 infested Terrans killing 200 supply battle cruisers.
Yeah.
That was a sad game to cast.
That was pretty sad. I did not think that Zerg could actually win, but that was like 1 billion infested Terrans, I guess.
And that's why they're gone.
Yeah, that's probably yeah, most definitely. All right, so let's see what this game has in store for us. It is going to be MarineLorD just scouting and spotting the natural base. Nothing to be worried about in terms of Lynx being sneaky and denying his own CC, so the Reaper will be able to cross the map. And there's already been damage done deliberately to 2 different drones as well, so this Reaper could capitalize.
Which drone will you try to save? One will live, one will die. The choice is yours. Oh, no, not when it's Zerg. He can turn him into an extractor and cancel him. Sorry, Jigsaw. He actually can save both drones.
Yeah. All right, well, that's going to be a good start for SortOf, who also managed to kill the SCV on the way out. So a slight miscalculation from MarineLorD. You never want to overextend until it dies, obviously, but nothing major going on. 2 Hellions being produced, a Stargate or a Starport back at his main. So still could see Hellion drop.
Ooh, Roach Warren. Cheeky. So I think that SortOf is probably decided that this is not going to be a 2-1-1 again, because it's not really that great against the non-fast muta builds.
Yeah.
But at the same time, what else would he do? Probably a 1-1-1, maybe a battle cruiser play, Banshee play, possibly a Liberator. But going for this Roach Warren means that as soon as the Hellions show up, he's going to have some feeling of comfortability that he could kill
MarineLorD thinks he's being baited. So he sees the queen's out of position, and he thinks he was being baited. So he doesn't run in the Hellions. I think he had an opening. There's like nothing else.
There's no lings.
That's so
he could have dived in there. He could have killed a lot of drones.
Oh.
And now he's about to. He's gonna look. He's going for a battle cruiser rush, and he's only building 2 roaches. I kind of want.
Yeah, he would have also spotted the roach warren. He would have done everything. I mean, this is a mistake on SortOf's part that MarineLorD thinks too much about, right? And he thinks, there's no way you're not paying attention to those. This is bait.
He's like, it has to be bait. I have to be getting tricked. There's 1 roach. Oh no, I'm getting all in. Well, I mean, he should be considering the possibility that all the lings, a handful, do come in from the back. Gets one of the Hellions, second one very low, picks that off. Every single unit is worth its weight in gold now. And here's the great part. He can't really go for the BC because he's worried about the roaches now. And he's got a Banshee in production, which are generally pretty useless against Zerg. So he's getting this defensive setup now, adding a bunker. Instead of having that harass potential out of the BC, it's gonna slow down what he actually wanted to do this game.
Yeah, and this is gonna be a little bit of a poke for SortOf, who is droning up behind. This is something that Zergs have started doing a little bit more. It's funny because as the meta progresses, Zergs are playing a little bit more like Bly was playing all this time. You know, being a little bit trickier with the things that they mix in, and seemingly random timings are being found where there are openings from the terrain where they don't have everything ready yet. That said, Banshee, perfect. What are you talking about?
That does give you the defensive potential over here against the Ravagers, and that'll be nice being able to pick these off. It's cranking out drones on the other side, but 3rd command center and the battle cruiser start. MarineLorD is supply blocked at the moment, so his ability to add anything to this is drastically limited unless he gets the energy for a supply drop, as the deep only just started. He is going to get Yamato though, so honestly, that makes me feel even worse that he had to get the Banshee out at this time, but
come on,
killing enough on the way back is pretty good. I'm just saying, if he wanted to go, if he plans on building more than 1 BC, it would have been nicer to start earlier. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, well, the Banshee killed like 1,000 resources worth of Zerg units, but Nate will maintain that it is a terrible unit throughout.
I don't like Banshees. They're good defensively, but that's just pretty much it, cats.
Yeah,
it's okay for people to disagree with me. I've learned that that's not the end of the world. You don't have to agree with me. I just don't like Banshees versus Zerg.
That's okay. So, yeah. I mean, this is a little bit of a poke. The battlecruiser was delayed, and Yamato is being made. I wonder if there's going to be... Well, there's a second one now on the way. I wonder if there's going to be even more. Oh, this is...
That's balls. He brought the Marines, too, that he had in that bunker. And this is... Oh, this is just very unexpected. I didn't actually think that he would be so aggro. I would have for sure thought he was scared that a starport, or excuse me, a spire or something was underway, but the lair actually ended up coming in so late off the back of the gas he put into those Ravagers that he gets a pretty nice start here. As long as he doesn't lose the battlecruiser, killing 8 drones right there is nice. The Marines, he doesn't really care about those, right? He's going mech. The Hellions, cheap, replaceable, not the end of the world. And he actually already has a tank back home just in case a laser, or excuse me, sort of decided that he wanted to really throw a lot of units at him, which he's not exactly in a position to do. So I quite like the start of this. That BC was a gutsy call to just chuck it in like that, but I think it ended up paying off big time.
Yeah, it was very, very nice. And now Yamato will also be done. So he's going to start leveraging that as well. Let's see if he builds a 3rd BC. I would assume that we're going to see a 3rd one. Double armory on the way as well. As SortOf also starts his upgrades. Yeah, I kind of like MarineLorD's position a little bit better, but not a terrible position for SortOf either.
Yeah, he does have a crazy number of drones. So assuming that MarineLorD doesn't get any sort of like decent follow-up here, there is big potential for SortOf to get some work done, or just kind of try to overrun him if he can play greedily without taking too much damage from the BCs or the Hellions or the Cyclones. He's actually mixing in early Widow Mines, and since he has those armories and we didn't see an Overseer last game, I actually really like that. Like, he's already going to have the undetectable, or the you need detection Widow Mines to put a lot of pressure on. I wouldn't even mind if he Yamato'd an Overseer that came too close, but grabs 2 of those queens. The Spore isn't done here yet, cats. Drone's going down.
Yeah, there's 11 Corruptors on the way for SortOf, but they're obviously not out yet. And having taken 2 queens and some more earlier, MarineLorD is going to be very confident advancing onto this drone line here, where there is a Spore, but that's not nearly enough. These Corruptors are going to be a little bit late to the party, and they're finally going to be able to push the BCs back, but not before they kill 15 drones.
Yeah, that is phenomenal. Then the Corruptors show up, just immediately teleport out. There's not really any reason to ever fight Corruptors head-to-head with BCs. Just send them home. 15 drones is phenomenal. And now that he's moving into the Cyclones, he might actually catch a couple of these Corruptors. Killing any Corruptors here would be massive, but no mag field yet, and he did not have the vision to stay locked on. But at the very least, he defends himself nicely. Very well done with this early move out from the Hellions and the Cyclones.
Yeah, I love it, right? Identifies that there's so many Corruptors up in the air that there mustn't be a very threatening ground force, and right away he moves out. This is part of why I love MarineLorD and his play is he's always very consistent and makes very cool decisions. So these units are now a little bit more out on the map. He's gonna place those mines as forward as he can. Beautiful. And
yeah, I love to see that. You love to see that because Zergs just don't think about this kind of thing very often when they're playing versus a mech opponent, right? They're thinking about overwhelming stuff, moving things around, but you know, there's only so many overseers that are ever going to be on the field. So the opportunity to get those random pot shots off on the army are massive, especially as an anchor point for something like a Hellion Cyclone move out, which usually, you know, they kind of have to run away. But if they have a place to retreat, that's going to make them very hard to deal with.
This mine is so inconspicuous. Like this is also a difference between many Terran players. Some of them will just think, oh, mines, I'll just burrow them, right? But if you burrow them and if you're sneaky about where you burrow them, they can do so much. I would not be surprised if this mine, if it has been unspotted, if it takes a huge shot. Can we look at the mine? Huge shot. Oh,
it led too far. That's one of those, that one, if you can right click that one into the middle, obviously at that point, you're taking away the ease of use. But Yamato, these Corruptors, he might need to just teleport out of here. It's very dangerous to stand and deliver with this type of army. Losing the BCs would be really bad. Oh, lots of Lings running to the natural, trying to get into the main. The Hellions and the Cyclones are in position to try and deal with it, but they don't actually get all the Lings that are in the natural.
Yeah, those are so dangerous. Most of them will be ignored now, and the natural is going to be depleted of SCVs. 10 have gone down so far, but MarineLorD at least manages to deflect the attack on the other side. It's so hard crushing when you look at your natural and you thought you defended it, and now there's nothing in it.
You know, at the same time, though, he's still got 60 SCVs, which is more than passable for a Terran player, I think. As if he's adding any orbitals, right, then I think that he should be okay. He's adding an orbital inside the natural. He's going to PF the 4th base. Makes a lot of sense. So at the end of the day, part of the way that this style works is that he does want to trade a lot, so you make more SCVs than you need. But Terran should always be in a good place if they're at least at that 60 mark. You don't need to be too much higher than that to be able to rebuild your army in this situation.
But at the third, SortOf is having something to say about that mark as he picks off another 2 or 3, 4 SCVs actually, and will be forced back. Okay.
Now this army is still got quite a scary force. The hardest thing about this type of composition is that you don't really have a lot of push potential versus Zerg with Hellion Cyclone. These units are great at fighting in the middle of the map, and that's mostly it. You can kind of pick stuff up off the outside, but then you're getting close to creep, and that's when they can get overwhelmed really easily. Hellion Cyclone has never been great defensively. If you have enough number overwhelming, it can be helped. But I'm wondering, he's adding some tanks. You're kind of like, I guess he's just going to try to use a siege tank backbone behind this to make a big push in the next minute or so, because he's almost
Yeah, I think you make a great point, right? Like, because Cyclones are such kitey units, they want to lock on and run back, and this is exactly what they're doing here. So they're great on offense when they have essentially the entire map to run back, but they're pretty weak on defense when they get trapped against the wall and they can't micro and they can't run back after the lock-ons. So a very nice job here by MarineLorD.
This is the ideal use case for the Cyclones. He just needs to keep everything else alive. He needs to be safe against the counterattacks and that base. I think he re-put that wall up on the third, which is really nice, but there's still no units to actually defend here. As
yeah, he's getting some more tanks as well as
things a little bit.
Yeah, those tanks are going to help greatly against Rambais. So, you know, units that are going to be trickling in, SortOf is going to have to be a little bit more committed to them. And yeah, I really like the setup for MarineLorD right now. Creep has continued to expand now for SortOf, so we're seeing somewhat of a split map scenario, and this is a huge move out, Nate.
Yeah, no, this is absolutely massive. With the number of tanks that he has behind this, the biggest things are like some infestor production, right? Is what he wants to go to. But you really need Hive Tech to deal with this, Cap. Like, those Corruptors, they can't kill this army. He can't turn them into Broodlords to support this army. You could even try to backstab him with the battle cruisers and just to stretch everything apart at the beginning of this fight. But it's really going to come down to, can these tank shots get what they need onto the Ling Bane?
This is a huge attack, and SortOf is gonna go all the way to the back with these Banelings. The battlecruisers will be taken down for the most part. The Cyclones are running away, but they will not have any luck against Zerglings. And wow, SortOf is cleaning up comfortably, it looks like.
Yeah, this is just one of those situations where SortOf picked the perfect time to actually take the fight. The siege tanks were not really able to get the shelling off that they wanted. Most of them died mid-siege at that move up. Kind of need to trail them out as you're approaching that position, or that can happen to you. And like I said, the Hellion Cyclone, all they can really do is run and kite, but then those fast units catch them, and it's like, well, how are you going to attack with just Hellion Cyclone versus a full army? The answer is you can't.
Yeah, exactly. So it's exactly what you pointed to. If those siege tanks had been sieged one at a time, there was like 6 or 7 that SortOf would have had to run through, as well as the Cyclones kiting. Instead, he picks off the clump of them very easily with those Ravagers, Lynx, Banelings, all of which benefit from the tanks being clumped and them spending time sieging instead of just, firing right away. So good engagement from SortOf will net him decent position where at least he has breathing room, though MarineLorD is still very, very avidly securing his half of the map.
Yeah, this is an awkward situation to be in, I think, a little bit. Now that the Hive Tech is coming into play and he's already got the Infestors with the Pathogen Glands upgrade, he wants to move into Big Thors. Those are basically the only things that are going to be able to tank all those Banelings while still being able to kill the other units. You got to support them with a lot of Liberators. And now the question becomes, can you survive an onslaught of units that are going to try to overwhelm those? You have to have the detection in place to deal with the Infestors if they get the Neural Parasite upgrade. And then even at that, the Thors on their own, if everything else dies, and then they're getting that big Roach or Ling flood out past it with a Remax, they can shut that down. So you need to be very cautious about how you're going to move this army for the rest of the game.
Yeah, massive late game upgrades on both ends. SortOf pushes towards 3-3 on attack, as well as those Adrenalings. For the Lynx, the Corruptors will engage onto those pieces. I'm not sure why they were backing from them. That was kind of awkward.
Yeah, he was trying to bait him. He threw a fungal at the last second there while they were in mid-teleport animation. He barely missed with that fungal. He was very close to getting both of them killed.
That would have.
He was like, yeah, come a little closer, come a little closer.
Yeah, now a lot of Thors are being produced, but like you mentioned, there is already Pathogen Glands for the Infestors, and now there's Neural Parasite as well as 4 Infestors. I love this from SortOf. I think that is the hardest counter to Thors ever, is Neural Parasite on Infestors. It's something that not every Zerg player still does for some reason, but yeah, I love it. Love to see.
It's going to be very interesting to see how MarineLorD tries to take a fight, or if he really does, if he's going to try and make SortOf attack into him. I think there's just so many different ways that it can play out that it can just get so awkward. Did he make a Greater Spire? Is he just chilling on the Corruptors? He's not really thinking about using them like that? Okay, he does have that. So the option for Broodlords is available. You don't want to use them straight up on the Thors. That's a great way to throw if you play Zerg. But if he can make a good play with the Infestors, usually the Terran moves out. Infestors will come up from like this side ramp, right? Neural the tanks from behind or the Thors from behind, and then move everything else in.
Yeah, you gotta be thinking constantly about what your opponent wants to remax with. So say if you have a lot of Roach left over, you can anticipate that they're gonna go for tanks. Then you morph your Broodlords perhaps sneakily if you can afford to, right? So it's always nice to have the option on remax, like you were pointing out. But yeah, definitely not straight into those doors.
Yeah. So the battle cruisers, this is where they gain a little bit of their value back as the map starts to be taken, right? As you can kind of do these pokes and prods. Shoot out your Yamatos, teleport away. You just got to be careful, right? Some Zergs will leave like an burrowed Infestor at one of their bases or some crazy stuff. If those get grabbed, that sucks. But he's going into Ghosts. And if he can manage the control, I love it. I mean, Ghosts literally counter everything that Zerg has if you use them correctly. So why not?
Yeah, this has always been my absolute nightmare, is the extreme late game. I think that Terran, if they can consolidate their army in one spot, it is extremely difficult to break once we see Ghosts and maybe Liberators with advanced ballistics, PFs, like you were mentioning earlier. You've seen it from MarineLorD to hold chokes and so on. Yeah. That is the kind of play that makes me very concerned for SortOf's ability to trade cost efficiently. That said, the way that Zergs usually win that is by attacking with everything where the Terran's not.
No, that's a really good point, though. As you try to force You try to force the pressure onto the weakest possible point of the Terran's defense, and then force everything else to unsiege and come charging in to help. But he's not in position to even try to do that. So he kills that hatch. He's going to have the Liberator sieged on this one, getting drone after drone. And then these tanks on the high ground, he's actually got them spaced out so well. He gets a couple of free shots on this army, and that is going to come up to deal with him. But missile turrets are going to take out the Overseers. The rest of his army's not too far away, so this has turned into a whole lot for him. I'm not sure. Lots of snipes going on the Ravagers too, Cats.
Wow, that was so beautiful because that position, as random as it looks with one tank and like 3 or 4 missile turrets, gives him the heads up. And it allows him to actually buy the time to get there and trade efficiently, right? Because like you were mentioning, this Terran army or Terran armies as they progress in general, they have to be so slow moving, especially with the mech, right? Sieging and sieging. And we saw it play on aggression where the sieging portion costed MarineLorD a lot. On defense, it's the same, right? If you're sieging late, if you're not positioned already where you need to be positioned, then your army is much weaker.
I do believe there is a number of Thors that Terran can build that at that point can basically become unkillable. So if he's able to continue to just build everything that he wants, it's going to be nice. These Lings kind of attacking the northwest. I like this a lot. It's one of the only places where there's not a planetary fortress. The only supply-free static defense that you've got when you're trying to max out and keep a big army. You need to be a little more cautious. I would have loved to see a PF on that ramp or maybe replace the outer orbital here with a planetary just to lock that base down from counterattacks. Because if you ignore this, even when that base mine's out, that's going to give him a way to try to attack your production. And that is the biggest weakness of Terran, right? You do not want the enemy on your production ever.
Yeah, I mean, that weak link that you were talking about has been exposed. This Ghost, by the way, took some fungals and a couple of Baneling shots, so now they're very susceptible. Let's remember there's no medevacs to heal them back up with this composition. So, yeah, gotta be a little bit concerned for those as well. And for the other side, like you said, the choke is still open. MarineLorD has to account for it somehow.
Yeah, he has reached a ludicrous number of orbital commands, by the way. He has a tremendous amount of energy available to him, whether it be for mules to rebuild, to bank up, or just scans to prevent himself from being caught off guard by the burrowed infestors. However, a Nidus network just finished. I actually really think... do you agree or disagree, Cats? I feel like at this stage, you got to try to do like more than one. Because I remember Raynor was really successful with this type of play, anti-mech, but he would do like 3 Niduses at once. It wasn't as simple as just sending a couple Cyclones or Liberators to one base. You really want to stretch the Terran out.
Yeah, and you have the economy to do it as well. I really like 2, 3, or even more Niduses being dropped on one location exactly for that reason. Especially if you're transporting things like lurkers, they become extra powerful because they are such good sieging units, say in the Terran main or stuff like that. These Link Rambyes have done really well. But yeah, I agree with you. One single Nidus, if it gets spotted, it's usually going to be semi-easy to deal with.
Yeah. Okay, the Nidus Swarm has started inside of the main base. A nuke is being dropped on the center left position for SortOf. That nuke is not really in range of any drones. I think he was hoping that he would try to move things away and they would go into it. And 2 drones do with some larva, but did that worm finish in the main base? He's still got Lings in that third that he's been dealing with all day.
Finish.
Yeah, that's painful. This is the biggest weakness for Terran, right? Is you don't have recall or teleport. You have to have some missile turrets there, honestly, to keep them from getting Overseers nearby.
Yeah, and if you look at the sensor towers, that's what allows for this, right? A little bit misplaced. There's 2 sensor towers that barely don't catch the edge of the bottom of the map. So the Overlord must have gone unscouted to that.
And he burrowed too. He burrows the Lings inside of that main base. So he's going to force him to scan or perhaps not scan, and he won't know. Yeah, the Lings are all still there. And guess what? That provides vision for another Nidus too if he wants. That weak soft spot that we were talking about. He just keeps applying a lot of pressure to the left side, and he says, well, if you lose your production, he's already taken away 2 of his nukes. He killed 2 of the Ghost Academies. The orbital commands have been threatened, and it's not going to get any easier for him. So he's kind of being forced to relocate everything to the southeast part of the map.
Yeah, it's not the worst thing in the world in the sense that that base was already mined out. Maybe that's why he chooses not to account for that choke. But yeah, definitely taking a lot of damage bleeding in through there. So maybe he thought, I'm going to mine it and milk it for a little bit longer. But now it has been the door open. That
he just brings everything.
Time and time again. Now this orbital commands are going to be threatened. But there is somewhat of a setup, not big enough. SortOf will gain an amazing position. And this is looking very, very good for the Swede.
Oh, yeah. I mean, this is the ideal scenario because he wants to apply pressure on the right and hold the right down. But if he doesn't have anything that can actually keep the west side of his base together, then he's going to constantly be forced to be pulled back. And this also makes it really easy for SortOf to take all those bases in the northwest too, because now MarineLorD has no position to actually attack from over there. And we start to see the cracks a little bit. This army's still very terrifying for MarineLorD. He has a big force, lots of ghosts still, but he's getting pulled apart a little bit by bit.
Yeah, this is super awkward for all the reasons that you're mentioning. I feel like MarineLorD has to transition to taking the next base on the side of SortOf and maybe siege from there. But what was the third base for SortOf is already mined out. So there's a lot of pathways for MarineLorD to go on the right. Oh, and I love this. Okay, this is a nice poke onto the left-hand side of the map where he can actually make something happen with his Hellbats and keep SortOf somewhat in check. But this is good.
Well, it's hard too, right? You lose the armories and then your units are less good. And yeah, his army's great, but it's all spread out now. Not everything is together. The neural parasites taking those Thors. Assimilation successful as he pushes through the front line. And guess what? With Zerglings ripping your factories apart, it doesn't matter that you have 10,000 minerals. What is he actually building? 2 tanks and 4 Hellions because he doesn't have production anymore? 3 factories start, but cats. It's going to take him so long just to get the buildings and add-ons. He's building 7 factories because he lost everything. And this is exactly what I was talking about. That one soft spot SortOf just kept pushing on it and pushing on it. And now MarineLorD has to spend thousands of resources just on infrastructure before he can even try to rebuild his army.
Yeah, this has been somewhat of a masterclass for SortOf. If MarineLorD can still stabilize somehow, that would be amazing for him, but it's not looking too likely. Those Thors being caught off position and at the front, that is the best trade possible for those infestors. And now with the Zerglings tanking for those roaches in the back, the 3 Thors will be easily dealt with. They try to focus fire the expensive units in the back and will take a few of them to the grave, but it's still SortOf with a very, very commanding position.
And guess what? You can't build an armory without a factory. So I don't know if he actually was able to rebuild that armory, but he's building 37 Mutalisks right now.
Jeez,
and I am not convinced there is anything that can deal with it. He does have an armory, but can he actually build Thors? He's building tanks. He's building 4 Thors right now. Well, with +3 upgrades, they definitely could kill them, but it's going to be hard. Actually, yeah, just have these Corruptors be on everything too while you're at it. YOLO.
Yeah, and if the Muta fly away from those 4 Thors, they have the rest of MarineLorD to harass.
Oh,
so this is pretty brutal. I think that's gonna be it. That is
Thors are halfway
so very
done.
many Muta.
Thors are halfway done. I can't believe I'm about to see. You know, usually you're like, oh, the Zerg did a great job denying expansions. Not what happened this game. What happened was the Terran player died with over 10,000 resources in the bank while building 8 Thors at once because just didn't really put any defense by the production. Just kind of said, yeah, I'm going to have these planetaries on the outer rim, but I feel like on this map, you got to, if you're going to play this style, you got to have something really strong, like multiple planetaries locking down the outside of that third and the natural ramp, just because this is what smart Zerg players will do to you. And SortOf is, as you put it, masterclass. I'm actually mind blown that I haven't seen a single Viper in this game either. Like he has just done it with units. He's just done it with great multitasking and just picking his opponent apart, even though he had, when all together, I would have said a largely unkillable army.
Yeah. There are, you know, you have to fight it and you have to engage it whenever you see the opportunities. SortOf creating himself those opportunities takes at some point all of the, I mean, the Thor's neuroparasited. It cannot be understated. Each one of those things costs 500. You neuroparasited, all of a sudden it's 1,000 resource swing in a fight. It's gigantic per Thor, right? So yeah, it's if you manage to catch 4 or 5 of those, it's pretty difficult to come back from that. That's a 5,000 resource swing, not what you want. And SortOf is gonna take